I'm Jennifer Sierra with the Bellevue Dayton Sun, and we're here this morning with Dave Imboden from DCI Properties to talk about Manhattan Harbour. I'd like to know how you got started with Manhattan Harbour down here as a project.
I'll tell you exactly how I got started. I developed right across the river, as you can see, back in 1993. I think I broke ground on my first project over there, and have lived over there ever since. So since 1993, I kept looking across this river and seeing that green flood wall. And I always wondered why there wasn't any development. You know, there's a mile and a half long, all on the river, and I thought, well, how can there not be any development there, which would produce tax income for the city? So I thought, of course, the city would want it if it was possible. So I literally watched it for 10 years, and in 2005, I came over and met with city council and the mayor, and kind of, just dug around to find out who actually owns the flood wall. Because at the time I thought maybe FEMA owns it, or the federal government. And it turned out Dayton actually owned it, and they could negotiate with developers and do what they wanted to do with it. So we struck a development deal in November of 2005. So I've literally been on this site for 10 years.
Why did it take so long to develop the property?
Well, the biggest thing was this whole project. It's 141 acres, Manhattan Harbour is. It's a mile and a half long, but it was all in the floodway. When the floodway is different than the floodplain. The floodway meant the line, FEMA and the Corps of Engineers draws a line and says you cannot build within the floodway. Well, the line was actually drawn behind the flood wall. So nothing from the flood wall to the river could be built on, no matter how high you built it or no matter how much fill you brought in. So we spent about literally exactly 18 months and spent over $1 million working with the Corps of Engineers and FEMA and surveyors and architects and attorneys and everybody to get FEMA actually to agree that it's possible to move the floodway line from behind the flood wall to the river, which it was earlier before the flood wall was built. I mean, there were homes here. So everybody agreed, and we got approval in July of 2007. So that was almost a year and a half, and then that made the whole site buildable. Now the next challenge was it was in the floodplain. So you're below. We were like 22 feet below the floodplain. So it's either do you pier a whole city on piers, or do you bring in fill and fill it up? And we chose to fill everything up, and we've spent 10 years bringing in dirt and compacting engineered fill so we can raise the whole site out of the 100-year floodplain. So that's basically what took so long, And then you hit the recession back in 7 and 8 and 9, and what happened was when the recession came along, there was no dirt. There was nobody building big projects that needed to get rid of dirt. And we basically sat probably about 3 years just getting a little bit. You'd get 5,000 yards here. Somebody would be building a swimming pool and you get 100 yards, But it just was piecemeal. And then finally, after the recession, things started breaking and big projects started happening. And we got the 471 project on the expressway. We got 75 at Hopple Street. We got the Dunhumpy building. And, started getting a lot of projects. And the Nelson Stark Company trucked all this dirt in, did all the infrastructure. And they were amazing. I mean, we literally brought in about 800,000 yards. Our permit is for 1 million yards of dirt, and we're at about 800,000 right now. So we're finishing things up. But that was a challenging part, just raising the whole entire site out of the 100-year plain.